It's time for a new game, and this one I've had in my head for a while now. I've already started posting concept art on Twitter, and I'm super excited to kick off this new devlog series to introduce you to the game and see what you think. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first devlog for my museum management game. Before we jump into the game details, for those who don't know me, let me introduce myself. I'm Lewis, but I go by Skeffles in the game development community. I'm a software engineer and hobby game dev living in Nottingham, England. For the past few years, I've been making small games in my own engine, slowly growing my game development skills and the capabilities of the engine. My last big project was a tower defense game, and I've recently participated in a few jams and challenges. Right now, I've got confidence and I'm feeling very excited to begin work on this new game. So, let me tell you about the idea I've got for this game. I've been a fan of management games since I was a kid. Rollercoaster Tycoon, Theme Hospital and The Sims were some of my favourite games growing up. They're still fantastic to play, which I did on stream at the start of the year to get inspiration for this game. I also streamed a few contemporary management games, including Prison Architect, Planet Zoo and City Skylines, to see how the genre has evolved. In many ways it's not changed much. Your core gameplay loop is about building what you want and managing what you've built in each level. Your goal is to keep things running smoothly, dealing with events thrown your way. Once you've proven yourself, you can advance onto the next level. This is the heart of the genre, giving the player freedom within each level and providing a long-term goal to work towards with intermittent distractions along the way. That is exactly what I want from this game, but you may be wondering why I picked museums as a setting. I'm not particularly an avid museum goer, however the ones I've been to I've enjoyed. I think it's fantastic how one place can teach science, preserve history and show off culture. They're not just something for one demographic, they're for everybody, no matter your age, gender, race or religion. There's something for you. They're all unique, but have common features which translates really well into games. You'll often see games with a museum level, but when I looked for museum games, I couldn't find much. Just a few that either have completely different gameplay or are in a never-ending development cycle. I want to break that cycle. It may take time to fully develop, but I'm going to release as many demos as I can along the way, bringing together the charm of museums with the fun of management games. So I'm thinking you'll have a campaign with a series of different museums to play through. Some may be small and specialise in one area, and others may be big, hosting a variety of exhibits with special significance in the world. I've got loads of ideas to put a spin on this base gameplay, from creating museum tours, expanding museum accessibility, auctions for new items, and the most scope creep I've ever thought of, museum heists. There are loads of possibilities right now, but I want to focus on the basics, building your own museum. I want your museum to be a focal point of the game, a place that you can customise, build up and show off to your friends. So let's take a look at the work I've already done to get this project started. One of the lessons I learned from my last big game, Project Torum, was to establish a setting and art direction early on. I failed to do that and I think the game suffered because of it. To make up for that, I participated in Pixelmania 2021 to improve my art skills and try out different art styles. I grew particularly fond of isometric images as they've got perspective beyond the flat image, and I'm pretty nostalgic for late 90s and early 2000s games when the style was quite prominent. So taking what I've learned from that challenge, I've created two little museum concepts, so let's check them out. This first concept is for a medieval museum. There are a number of different displays including a table of weapons, armour stands, banners and bookcases. I've also tried to build out the world with paths, trees and a bench for visitors to sit on. I really like how this came out and I learned some valuable lessons creating it. Mainly that this style limits the amount of detail smaller items can have. For example, what on earth are these displays? In my head they're weapons and armour, but the resolution is so small it's impossible to know for sure. This could be quite detrimental to the types of exhibits I can add to the game, however now we know about this weakness we can take steps to avoid it. For example, don't create exclusively small areas, and when small displays cannot be avoided, make good use of bigger exhibits to give context to the wider area. Moving on to the second museum concept, a more classical museum. This was inspired by the museums I visited a few years ago in Paris. They were mostly historical buildings with lots of fine art like statues and paintings. The main point of interest in this concept is the statue on the fountain. There are a number of well-kept plants and some marble seating. I also played around with decorating the walls in a fancy style to imply a historical setting for the museum. Again, I really like how this came out, but there's less detail than in the first concept, except for maybe in the humans. Whilst making this concept, I attempted to redesign the humans, however I wasn't confident in the change. I took the redesign to Twitter and the response you gave me was pretty clear. Used a new face with the old body, and this was a fantastic decision. Playing about with this new human design is so much fun. I absolutely love how diverse these characters can be. They can have different skin tones, genders, hairstyles, headgear, clothing styles, and even disabilities. I'm super excited for the potential that these characters have from both a representation and gameplay side. If you've got any more ideas for variations of characters, please let me know. I'd love to see how far we can take them. These museum concepts have been fantastic to get a glimpse into the world of this game. However, I want to see more. Let's take this up a notch for one more museum concept. Let's create an entire space museum. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Space Museum. Let's take a look around like any visitor would, starting in the car park and heading straight to the museum. As we head towards the entrance, you'll see the National Space Memorial, which serves to remember all those that have died in the pursuit of space travel. Entering the museum, there is the welcome area. This is where guests can buy admission and tickets for shows at the planetarium. Heading towards our first exhibits now, we can see the models of the planets. These are all to scale and really give you an idea of just how small Earth is compared to Jupiter and Saturn. I also looked at adding the Sun, but it's about 10 times the size of Jupiter, meaning it would struggle to fit in the museum. Just next to the planets are the spacesuits, each styled to a different decade of space travel. Next we've got the Soyuz inspired spacecraft, which surprised me at just how small it is. But it's cool nevertheless. And over here we've got a lunar corner. The floor has been styled to look like the moon, and we've got the lunar lander based on the Apollo lunar lander module. I was a bit unsure about this at first because it was drawn in a slightly different perspective, but I think it turned out quite nicely in the end. Let's take a step outside now to the bigger exhibits in the rocket garden. Here are two massive rockets. The orange one is based on the Atlas V, and the grey one is based on the Ariane 5. I was hoping to add the Saturn V as well, but it's just way too big to fit in this concept. The last exhibit we've got outside is the Space Shuttle Orbiter. This was actually the first thing I drew for the museum, so it's got a few wonky features, but I think it's my favourite exhibit. Finally, let's head back inside. Currently the planetarium is filled with visitors watching the latest show. As soon as they come out, we're expecting them to hit the gift shop, so unfortunately that means this is the end of the tour, but I hope you've enjoyed it. Please come back again soon. There's a bunch more detail I just couldn't cover in the tour, so please check out the full image, there'll be a link in the video description, and let me know what you think in the comments. This image genuinely gets me more excited to work on a game than I have been for a long time. It embodies where I want to take this game, proving museums can have a grand sense of scale, but also so many small details. Right now, a lot of these smaller details hint towards possible gameplay ideas, although nothing is set in stone yet. Like I mentioned earlier, I want to release demos, so before I worry about every possible gameplay idea, I'm going to focus on the Museum Builder demo. It'll use the same assets that I made for these concepts, so you'll be able to make your own spin on these museums. When will this be? Well, I expect early next year. I've got some significant game engine tweaks that I need to do first, which is what the next devlog is going to all be about. Then we'll see about the demo. I hope you've enjoyed this devlog for my museum management game. If you want to keep up to date with the development, then please consider subscribing to get notified when I release a new devlog. I'm hoping to upload about once a month. And check out my Twitter in the description at Skeffels. I've been posting small updates every few days, and I'm currently participating in Devtober. Thank you, and goodbye.